So by now you may have heard of Peanut the Squirrel and also Fred the Raccoon. Justice for Fred. Okay, Fred existed. Fred needs to be remembered. He was a little raccoon. He had those little raccoon hands. He was very cute too. And unfortunately, along with Peanut, he was also euthanized. So you may have heard about this recently. It became a viral situation, right? There is also rumoured now going around the individual that apparently reported Peanut the Squirrel to the authorities. But that's unconfirmed at this point in time. But I thought we'd take a look at this. Peanut the Squirrel. I was asked this on one of my live streams, and people were genuinely interested in my thoughts. So I thought I would do a video on it. Branching out as I am. But basically, Peanut the Squirrel was an Instagram and TikTok famous squirrel. It was an orphan squirrel that was found as a baby, couldn't be rewilded, or couldn't be, given to the wild again. Couldn't be allowed to roam free because just didn't have the capabilities. Had become too tame. So this squirrel had lived with its owners, I guess, although seemingly they adopted one another, for about 7 years. And then all of a sudden, literally 7 years of peace, absolutely fine. Then all of a sudden what happened was the authorities came in, raided the house for like 5 hours, took the squirrel, took Fred, and euthanized them. Killed them. Apparently, unfortunately, and really quite grotesquely, also chopped Peanut's head off as well. All of this is incredibly disgusting and is gross. It's pretty major overreach. Now, a lot of people have seemingly listened to the authorities and taken their word as the gospel was that Peanut the Squirrel apparently bit one of them. Now, according to the owner, the caretaker of Peanut the Squirrel, he'd never done anything like that. But because he did allegedly bite one of the feds, they had to confiscate the animals, which seems a gross way of word it. They kidnapped the animals and euthanized them to make sure that they didn't have rabies. There's a few things that kind of wrong with that story. I mean, if Peanut had rabies, he'd probably be dead. It would be, perfectly obvious that he would have had rabies. Not overly sure why that then also linked the raccoon to the rabies either, though. That was a bit of a weird one. And the media is politicizing the death of Peanut the Squirrel. How Peanut the Squirrel became an unlikely right-wing celebrity. Musk joins a chorus of conservatives turning the euthanized Peanut the Squirrel into a symbol of government overreach. Or just pointing it out, maybe? So this is what you get from mainstream media. And what I find gross, the whole Peanut the Squirrel situation is gross anyway. It's really quite gross, actually. The animal had lived with these individuals for 7 years. It had done nothing wrong. It had lived peacefully. And then through no fault of its own, it was murdered. I like to use the word murder when it's effectively a pet, because it's murder at that point. It's not just a death. This animal was wonderfully cared for. And yeah, I'd say that is pretty plainly government overreach. It's wholly unnecessary. And now mainstream media is trying to smear everyone as just right-wing losers and conservative losers. I mean, if caring about animals constitutes being right-wing, then yeah, I guess. It's not the win take that you think it is. That's an L take. It's a really big, weird self-report. And it is government overreach. It really is government overreach. This animal had done nothing wrong, hadn't really done anything, done no harm to anyone or anything. They get a tip off and they're like, right, we're going to come in and absolutely just destroy your entire lives. Now, there is an argument some people are using, which is a bit of a weird one, is that the owner, the caretaker, the chap, is an OnlyFans model and has a gay following. And so he was using Peanut the Squirrel to promote his OnlyFans or something like that. Bit of a weird argument. The couple had actually created a animal sort of sanctuary, and those things are incredibly expensive. Now, I don't condone OnlyFans. I think OnlyFans is disgusting. I think it's abhorrent. However, those two things are not linked. They're not linked at all. You know, you can do one morally right thing, which is rehoming animals and caring for them and looking after them and paying the extortionate sums of money it costs to look after animals, which it really does, whilst also doing a morally reprehensible thing such as OnlyFans. But mainstream media with these L takes how Peanut the Squirrel became an unlikely right-wing celebrity. That's right, guys, you don't want innocent animals murdered. You're right-wing. These people are retards. So I thought we'd take a look at this. It's the Monday right before the 2024 presidential election, and Republicans cannot stop talking about the state-sanctioned euthanizing of a squirrel named Peanut. Known colloquially to his 720,000 plus Instagram followers as Peanut, the tiny, charismatic rodent has become a right-wing martyr, as has his surviving, very muscular, frequently shirtless owner, Mark Longo, who also happens to be an OnlyFans model with a significant gay following. Despite the many freedoms the New Yorkers are afforded, it turns out that having a squirrel as a pet isn't legal in New York. In a New York Department of Environmental Conservation raid on Longo's property in Pine City, New York, Peanut reportedly bit an officer involved in the investigation. The squirrel and at least one other animal, a raccoon named Fred, were taken from the property and euthanized. What ensued was a social media frenzy that gained particular interest in right-wing spaces. I think that's mainly because right-wing people generally do actually have a heart. Shocking, I know. How can a woodland rodent become Republican? I fucking hate Vox. Did Peanut have to die? Why are Elon Musk and JD Vance talking about this dead animal? Are squirrels good pets? Why does this often naked man love the squirrel so much? So why was he killed? Well, we don't actually know. Again, they're saying that he was killed because he bit someone. But then why did they take the other animal? Is it justification? Probably not. I don't think so. And this statement from the DEC says, DEC sees the raccoon and squirrel showing a resemblance for humans, creating the potential for human exposure to rabies. It would be pretty obvious if they had rabies. In addition, a person involved in the investigation was bitten by the squirrel. To test for rabies, both animals were euthanized. But there's other animals there. Why didn't you take them all? Again, it seems oddly vindictive. Like, really, really does seem vindictive. And even this article says, my colleague Karen Landman, an MD who is trained as a physician and epidemiologist, pointed out that the measures might have been overly aggressive. Longo had been raising Peanut in his home for over 7 years. If the squirrel were actually rabid, he would have had a short lifespan. The animal was also captive, she pointed out, and could have had his blood tested without being killed. Yeah. And this kind of just continues, to be honest. But it's the disgusting mainstream media situation that annoyed me the most about it. Like, politicizing a squirrel's death, a pet's death. It's really bizarre. It's really, really, really bizarre. It's not a right-wing thing. This is one of those situations where there should be common ground. We should all be able to agree that this was senseless, needless, and has resulted in what was a loved animal being killed. We should all be able to find that middle ground and agree. That shouldn't be a political, tribalistic topic. It should just be fine. But it's not, because we live in 2024. So there you go, Peanut the Squirrel. R.I.P., I guess. R.I.P.